Hello everyone. Edika, thanks for the invitation. Isabel, thanks for organizing this event. And of course to everyone else here for attending. And I hope I can share some of the learnings that I and my team we made along the way, and hopefully get you inspired into for what we are doing. So I was already introduced, so maybe very shortly, as was said, it's the third time I tried to build a company, and did it with two previous companies already. The first one was a self-developed e-commerce platform that we sold as a SaaS system, mostly to a giant electronic retailer in Central Europe, but originally coming from the US. And 2.5 years down the road, we sold the entire product to this customer. And some of our people also went over and started working for them, but the core team stood and remained with me, and we founded the next company, became one of the biggest and largest SIs for Magento in Europe, called Symmetrics. And this company was acquired in early 2012 by a large global SI from Canada, and they made this entire company part of the digital portfolio they had. So I was fortunate enough to run a close to 200 people division, consisting of the former Magento part of the business, but also Hybris, Demandware and ATG. So I have quite some experience with working with all these platforms for some very large clients, and also having built my own stack. So basically I want to start with where we come from. Where Spryker comes from. So some of you might be familiar with a company called Zalando. It's actually one of the largest fashion retailers that we have in Europe. I think even the largest already, so close to 4 billion in revenue this year, just after 6 years. So quite an impressive growth story. And my current CTO, Fabian, used to be the CTO for Zalando a couple of years ago. And they started the business based on Magento. And when they hit this hyper growth phase, and they started to grow like very, very significantly and roll out multiple countries, they very quickly outperformed the standard feature set of this platform. And luckily enough, money was not such an issue back then for them. So Fabian could take close to 40 developers aside. No one really noticed that 40 developers have been missing, and they have developed their own technology stack. And they did it because they, at some point, they faced a situation where the productivity of the IT team he had was like very low. The majority of the people was taking care of things which did not contribute to productivity. So they took care of managing that the site is up and running at all. They ran through a massive TV campaign and commercials back then, taking care of performance, taking care of things like upgrading the platform every 6 months. And of course supporting it. So just a very tiny piece, a number of developers have been taking care of things that would create additional business value, like new functionality, etc. This was obviously not a good situation. So they developed their own stack, and very soon Fabian was promoted and became the CTO for Rocket Internet, which is one of the largest company builders that we have in the world actually. And they used the same stack they developed initially within Zalando to roll it out across multiple businesses that have been built. Businesses such as Westwing, for example, for furniture. They are close to 300 million in online revenue today. Lamudi in Africa, it's a marketplace for real estate. Dafiti, which is the clone of Zalando for Brazil. HelloFresh in the food industry. So basically completely different verticals and different businesses all across the world. And over time, close to 100 customers have been using this technology stack, even when Fabian and his team moved on to another company built in Berlin, which is called Project A. And still today we have all these companies, we call them the grandfather and father of Spryker. Close to 3 billion of GMV are still running based on this technology. So when we started the business, what we did is we essentially took the last version of the technology from Project A, which was a company built before, spent our entire first financing round to turn it into an enterprise-grade product, so add things you would not have in a company builder, such as documentation, for example, or clean code, and make it an enterprise software. So this is the background. So the question is, okay, what have we learned before Spryker, and what was the reason for us to think about building a new product at all? Because of course, many of you might know that there is a Magento out there, and Hybris, and some legacy platforms like ATG or WebSphere as well. So I want to share some of the learnings that we made along the way. And at some point, we counted the number of e-commerce projects that Fabian, myself, and the rest of the management team did, and it's close to 500. So I would say it's quite representative. And we learned the following. So first of all, there are some new successful customer groups that have been not existing 10 or 15 years ago. So many companies, of course, the online pure play companies, which have been founded in the last 5 to 10 years and have been very successful. There are companies within this group, but also within the traditional retailers who managed to become so-called category leaders. So basically selling the same products, the same. Let's take Zooplus, for example, is the market leader for pet food in Germany, also close to 3 billion in revenue, selling the same dead cow in the can as all the other people do, right? So the product is a commodity, is not different from what the others do. Or Zalando selling the same pair of jeans or shoes as the competitors, but doing it much smarter, right? So they managed to grow to billions of revenue within 5, 6, 7 years and outperform traditional retailers who have been in business often for the last couple of decades. And what we also see is that, so of course online pure players are successful, there are category leaders who differentiate themselves away, but there is also a growing number of so-called unique business models, basically more and more today. So since almost every vertical is commoditized, so you would not start another shop to sell green t-shirts online today anymore because the customer acquisition costs are so high, the technical threshold is so high. So people start thinking about very complex business models, marketplace models, comparisons, things like Uber and B&B, Tarendo of the selling tiers in Germany. We see a growing number of these unique business models that are coming out of the corporates, that are coming out of the startup world. And of course we have what is called digital transformation. So many companies that try to catch up, they look out of they look at the calendar, find out that it's 2016 already, and that the internet is not going away, and they have to do something basically. So companies from the banking or insurance industry, many manufacturers, many companies in the B2B space, many of them have to catch up because they have failed or have not been that successful in digitalizing their business model. The transformation is not really successful or was not really successful. So this is the customer side of the market that has definitely changed. We also see that the customer life cycle has become much more complex, right? So I mean, the traditional customer life cycle used to be very simple, and now it looks more like this. And every day, new bubbles, new services, new products are added. It becomes much harder for the retailer or for the business to understand what is really contributing to my top or to my bottom line, what helps me to differentiate, what helps me to create a unique position in the market. And when you try to understand why is it that some of these companies still are successful and some are not, and what is the pattern that you can see within the successful customer group, then very often, of course, you will see that these companies are very fast, so they're iterating fast, they're executing fast, they're not going for these 12 to 24 months projects, they're able to launch their MVPs, their POCs very quickly within, what I just said in the break, within 100 days or less. They try things out very quickly. The threshold that they have to invest into things is very low. You would never go for a trial and error strategy when you would have to invest a 7-digit amount, right? Because you would, when you say trial and error, of course there is also error included, and you would never go for it if you know that you need to spend too much money. But I think the most important thing is that for these companies that are successful, technology is the key differentiator. So they don't look at IT and technology as a pure cost center anymore as it used to be. For them, IT and tech is a value creator. Very often it's the most important part and the most important asset that they have. Because the product itself, again, the pet food, the shoe, the jeans, is a commodity, everyone can sell it, right? So there's nothing special about the product. You're basically competing on price if you're selling the same product. But all the topics that can lead to differentiation, be it things like an omni-channel strategy or mobile or personalization or same-day delivery or real-time bidding, whatever you take, these are all technical topics. even online marketing is a pretty much technical topic, right? Because you need a lot of BI expertise, you need people who are familiar with that. So tech is very important, and you cannot see this as a cost center anymore. This has significantly changed. What is also different is, of course, that you should always try to compare yourself with the winner. So if you look at methodology, because this has also changed and evolved over time, of course everyone remembers these times where we all did this kind of waterfall projects and had quarterly releases or released twice a year and had our project teams, and then we all discovered the agile thing and started being agile and doing Scrum or XP and going down to bi-weekly releases and becoming more flexible and transparent, and everything is good about this strategy, even for the ones who are implementing it today. But the problem is that the market has also evolved, and these successful companies that we are talking, especially in Berlin and many of the logos that I've shown, they are down to a 10 to 50 releases a day cycle, right? They organize themselves in vertical teams. So Zalando, they're releasing 50 times a day, right? So it's like very significant. So their pace, their ability to innovate, to respond to customer needs, to changes in the market or to competitors is like light years away from what many people and many consultants sell and think is like new, right? So of course the new is much better than this one, but it's light years away from what is the current best practice. And also the same thing for the scope. So it's very interesting if you go around in Berlin, which is like the startup capital in Germany, and people are really they have really this kind of MVP DNA, right? So you would never find someone who would start a business within a corporate or startup and go for a 24 months project, right? So the people they all inherited this rocket internet mantra of launching something within 100 days or less, right? And don't ask if it's 100 business days or 100 calendar days. Sometimes people ask this question. It's so people really launch it, they really define the KPIs of the MVP. So what is it that we want to try? What is it that we want to prove? Is it a new category? Is it a new country? Is it a new business model? What do I need to launch it? What is the essence of the business? And it's definitely not this kind of RFP where you have the 400 lines and put all the bullshit features in it, and 90% of them will not help you to sell any additional t-shirt, right? So at least there is no one who can prove it. So it's a lot about a change in the methodology. What has also changed is the way of thinking about technology, and we also have been talking about it during the break. So some of us are in business for quite a while, and might remember the so-called first generation of e-commerce, which was a very ERP-centric time, where the first e-commerce platforms and businesses have been mostly just an extension of the ERP. Everything was managed there, the products, the order management, the customers, everything was there, and the shop was just very stupid, and was also managed by the IT department. The guy who rolled out SAP or Navision or whatever the ERP system was, he got it on the table. How hard can it be? You just updated SAP, so just launch the shop. So this was like the task. This was also the time when these guys here mostly have been founded to solve this problem. And on the business side, we were thinking about the first experiments at all from business. Or what is the customer acquisition cost? Now I have something online. How do I get customers? How do I do SEO? How do I put up my products? Can I make, in many RFPs, I remember that one of the requirements was make sure the site is online, that it is not offline, right? So how do you make it? It's a no-brainer today, but it was a requirement back then. And then in the second generation, the time changed and suddenly it became a shop-centric time. Shop-centric meant that many business capabilities moved into the shop systems of the world because there was a new generation of people coming into the organizations, the heads of online, digital, head of e-commerce, younger people and roles which did not exist before. So for this reason, they of course demanded to have these capabilities in the front end and not in the back end system. They did not want to manage promotions or whatever in the back end. So the shops of the time, such as Magento and Demandware and many others, they grew and become very feature rich, right? So if you look at the feature list of a Magento, for example, it's like literally everything on this feature list. It don't matter if you need it or not, right? So there are, in fact, interesting statistics that people tend to use 30 to 40% only, maximum, out of the standard shop system stack. Of course, you pay for everything, but still you have it. So it was the shop-centric time, and people were thinking about what is the customer lifetime value, how do I do BI, how can I retain the customers that I want through my SEO, and things like, oh, let's go responsive or do mobile have been the task of this time. But what has changed so much is that right now we are moving away from this discussion about systems and this like technical discussion to a customer-centric time. So suddenly it's not about what is my ERP capable of doing, and this does not define the business strategy anymore. It's much more about what is that the customer want? How can I create differentiation for the same product that other people sell? And of course, monolithic systems are not so cool anymore. Everyone is talking microservices or SOA or other kind of architectures, because you have more channels today, you have much more devices that you need to be compliant with. The complexity of every bubble is higher, right? PIM today, much more complex than 10 years ago. Even content management, much more complex than 10 years ago. The most important part is the following. If you accept that we have a customer-centric time today, then implicitly you have to understand that this creates uncertainty. Because every one of us, every customer here in this room, changes his expectation very quickly, right? So there was no Apple Watch yesterday, there comes an Apple Watch, bam, we expect that our most favorite shop is like working on the watch. There was no service or no voice bot service yesterday, but now there is one and we expect that it's compliant. So the cycle of innovation is completely different, right? Back in the, so of course the more you go into the ERP and backend direction, the longer the innovation cycles, because you do not change things so often, so frequently in your ERP system. Yeah, it's okay, absolutely fine to have a 1 release a year, 2 releases a year back in the ERP world. But the innovation is really happening in the customer-facing front-end part. So the kind of speed and agility that we have seen and we have observed, it's not because we want it this way, it's because we all want it this way. Because now it's a customer-centric time and we want our most favorite retailers and businesses to respond to this very quickly. And also from a business perspective, the ROI expectations change. So when I remember when I started my first business and when we talked to customers, the ROI expectation was like 7, 8, 9 years. So it was absolutely fine to invest a couple of million into ATG because you had like a 10 years period to recoup the investment that you have made. Okay, and then when Magento came out, I remember suddenly this cycle, this ROI cycle expectation became shorter, down to 5 years, and people did the sheets and wanted the money back in 4 to 5 years. But now it's moving to 3 years and even less, because who knows what will happen in 4 years from now? How can you come up and issue an RFP with a IT strategy 2020 for business XYZ? You don't know how the business will look like. You don't know if it will be about voices, about mobile, about this and that, because it's a customer-centric time. And just a very funny example, so you can see, I think, on this slide, just the definition of what is called a front end has changed so much in like less than 15 years, right? From here to voices and bots and chats, etc., that we have, and AI and VR. And this is just one example. Of course, you have a lot of examples, but even with what we call the front end, how much it has evolved. And when you try to think 3-4 years from now, I think it's very hard to understand why you would go for a ROI period longer than that. Also, we see some changes in the customer behavior. So back in the old days when you were talking about physical retail stores, everything was very simple. So you went into a retail store and then you choose your product, and then here was your purchasing decision. Interestingly enough, in the internet and online, this kind of behavior is completely different. It's the other way around. You're first choosing the product, you try to understand what kind of TV you want to buy, you go to your social networks, you check out some price comparison or quality comparison websites, and then you decide that you want to go for this LG screen, and then you just Google it or go on Amazon and try to find a retailer which is just doing the transaction. So the meaning of the retailer itself is going down because he's basically just the one who is doing the transaction. Of course, there are preferences, and Isabel might prefer the one with the best price, and I want the one with the best service, and Ben wants the one with the best delivery time. So there is a marginal preference, but it's not enough anymore, because in these days this guy was the king. I'm in his store, okay, and he was taking care of it. And it becomes even harder if you Amazon to it, because the interesting thing is that when we talk to many customers, they are very able and capable of naming their competitors, and they give us sheets and say this is this company and that company. But for the majority of the market today, the biggest competitor is actually Amazon and not some other online guy, even if he is very online capable, right? It's even Amazon, because the choice for the customer is, so the question that you should ask yourself is, the product I'm selling, is it unique enough? And if not, can Amazon sell the same product faster, cheaper, deliver it with more service? And in 95% of the cases, the answer will be yes. And then ask yourself, why are you still in business, and how long will you stay in business actually if there is no differentiation for you at all? So many are very shocked by this news and say, oh my God, and come up with very smart strategies, and they come up with ideas like, oh, we should go multi-channel and omni-channel. I think it's very cool and very interesting and very important to do and to think about that. But remember one thing. There is almost no example in the world of companies who have generated growth out of omnichannel strategies. So omnichannel is a very good tool for shifting revenues from one channel into another. When you're losing revenue in one channel, shift it to another channel. Very good strategy. It's a very bad strategy if you bet your company's future on it. If you bet that you will outperform, outcompete some online pure competitors and grow through it. Because as you can see, right, all these companies, they have generated almost no growth and have invested hundreds of millions of dollars and euro into this. And I think yes, there is a certain pattern here. You can check the names of the companies, some very well-known ones, and the return and growth rates, and check how, for example, Amazon did in the same period of time. So this is what we learned in the last 10 years, and of course the question is now, what problem are we solving? So I wanna explain this with this simple chart. So if you would have this 2x2 matrix, and you would have x on the x-axis, you would have value, and here you would have uniqueness. Of course, everyone here is dreaming of having a product or a service which would be very unique and very valuable to the end customer. If you would have such a product, then it doesn't matter what you put up online. You could sell in a shop from 1995, everyone will buy your product or your service because it's very unique and very valuable. You would be like this alligator. You would have long-term differentiation and be on top of the food chain. Unfortunately, there are some companies who manage to be here, right? So they sell something which is very unique but has no value for end customers, right? So it's pretty much an idiotic business model, and they drop out of business. And there are even companies who manage to somehow get into this quarter here and have something with zero value or little value and no uniqueness. So the problem basically for the majority of the market is that the majority of the companies is here in the bottom right corner. They have something which is valuable somehow. They're selling sneakers, they're selling jeans, they're selling this TV screen, a laptop, a glass, but it's not unique. It's not unique enough. You cannot generate the differentiation through your product that you have in your warehouse. So and this from a marketing and business perspective leads to competing on price. As simple as that. Okay, so you are here and the majority is here. So everything we do and everything we believe in is about this arrow here. How to find and constantly find things that would, and USPs that would differentiate your business model. How to make sure that you move from here to there. It might be completely different strategies. It might be something in logistics, it might be something in with the pricing, it might be something in the way you acquire customers, in the way you retain customers, in the way you inspire customers. Doesn't matter, maybe it's all of that. And you have to constantly do it and redo it over and over and over again. Because once you have found a new nice USP and somehow have a competitive edge, you can be sure that your competitors will very quickly catch up and you have to redo it again. So the leaner and more agile and flexible you become, the better it is. And it's also very interesting because the definition of what is actually big has changed so much. So 10 years ago, we used to say if you're an online retailer, if you're doing 10 million online, you're big. It's a big business, okay? And then maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, we said, look, if a company is doing 100 million online, it's like a huge online business. It's very significant. But today, basically, we know the customer acquisition costs for every product that they're going up. That the products are commoditized, so it's very hard to generate USP from the product itself. Customer acquisition goes up. Customer loyalty is not given, more or less, right? So all these online pure companies, all these venture finance companies who have bet, where VC companies have bet hundreds of millions of euros on. Once they grow big, once they have a lot of customers, then the second and third purchase will be profitable. Okay, so the customer loyalty will be there and retention rate will be good, and this did not happen. Okay, so you have to convince and win the customer over and over and over again. There is no effect that is there. So today, in order to really succeed long term, you need to have like close to $1 billion in revenue to have the economy of scale, buy traffic, to have the tech capabilities to be very successful. And many companies, when you talk to them, their ambition level is like very little. They say, oh, you know what, we want to do this and that, and our business plan is 2 million in the first year, 5 million in the second year, and 7 million in the third year. And for them it sounds like very huge, but in fact, in the reality is that often you can recommend them to just invest the money and sell the products on the marketplace, because this will be a much more promising strategy. Because if the ambition level is not right, then most probably this will not be successful. And yes, the truth is, unfortunately, it's a winner takes it all market. So there are many studies, and you see across. So we have some German examples here. I'm sorry, but basically the story is that across every vertical that you can imagine, you can draw this line, and you will have your traditional companies that are here, and you will have the companies in the same vertical compared by growth rate and online revenue, which are here. And you have very little examples of companies from here who made it up there. And the thing is also that the best practice and benchmark dilemma that you would have. So I remember when I started my consulting business, we used to have sheets like this, right? So we went to customers and said, you know what, and the customers came with wishes, and they said, look, I want a navigation like this side, and I want that it's responsive like this side, and I want a checkout like Zalando, and I want this like this. The reality is that it just doesn't help you, okay? Because if you go, so what we always say is this kind of buying software through an RFI, RFP, where you would have your 400-line extra requirement sheet, and no one in the organization can tell whether you will sell one pair of shoes more or not with all these features. The reality is it will be outdated the day you issue it. Okay? Because again, it's a customer-centric time, the market moves very quickly. So don't spend time on this. And this kind of RFP, RFI, we say if you want to buy software like in the 90s, then you will buy software from the 90s. Right? So there is no other way around, because if you issue it to a company, when we get these things and we call and say, you know, if you really want us to fill this sheet, then we are out of this deal, because what do you want us to say here? We can say compliant with everything and then you invite us, right? So you have to explain that the problem is change. It's not about give us the longest feature list on earth anymore. So who is it built for? Who is Spryker built for? So there are people who really understand everything that I just said, and that say, okay, I have really a good deep understanding that the problem is change, and I think you could sum them up into this sheet and say, if you're a company who understood that IT as an asset is not a cost center anymore, or at least maybe you have not understood it yet, but you would like to understand it. If you agree that customer is coming first, that you should not think from the software, from your ERP or your backend software anymore. If data and speed, and if you have really learned and recognized that this is the competitive edge that other competitors of yours have in the market, this is why they outperform you very often, and within 5 years they make more revenue than you made in the last 30 years. And if you have understood that customer acquisition and retention is really the new USP, it's not about the product. We have a good example of a company, it's a premium bike retailer in Germany, the largest one. They're selling bikes starting from €1,000 upwards. And they run in the 5th generation. And the grandson of the founder, he was at the table, he is 82, so he's not managing the business anymore, but he was at the table, and he really believed that the key USP for this company is the quality of the product. And I said, and I told him, look, tomorrow 2 guys in Berlin can launch the same shop that you have within 6 weeks. They go to the Czech Republic, they go to Poland. If you're lucky, they go to you. They subcontract you to manufacture the white label bikes that they are selling. And the only thing they have most probably found out is that they have mastered customer acquisition and retention. They have learned how to own the customer relationship for people who want to buy premium bikes. And even if the product is 30 or 40% worse, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because if you're on page 26 in Google, it doesn't matter if you have the best bike. No one will find you. You will not be able to retain the customer anymore. And this is like very critical for many people to understand, because they still believe so much that the product is creating USP, and this is true for just very little percentages of categories. And we say that you have 2 triggers actually to start doing something within organizations and corporates. It's either ambition, so you have the right ambition level and you say, okay, I've understood that I need to do this and that, and I'm going for this, and this is why I'm putting up this investment, and this is why I hired the right people. You will not open a new retail store with 0 salesmen on the floor, because you need to check if it will generate sales first, and if it generates sales, then you hire the first salesman, and before that, the 40,000 square meters, they are empty. You would not act like this in an offline scenario. But many people have this kind of argumentation to say, why should I hire developers or e-commerce managers? I put the site, and when it starts to generate revenue, then I hire the people, then I do the investment. So ambition is good, and sometimes fear is also good. So some people don't have the ambition, but they have enough fear of disruption. So they see how other people are outperforming them, how they're growing and they are not, and they are starting to do something. So both are good triggers. Of course, ambition is the better one. So ask yourself, are you selling products on your website, or is actually the website, is the technology that you have, is this the main asset that you have? Because once you have, and Zalando is a good example, once you have given yourself a certain kind of technical infrastructure and have mastered customer acquisition and retention, it doesn't matter which product you push through this platform. It doesn't matter. You can start with flip-flops and selling shoes and jeans and gas and something else. Think about Google and Facebook and Amazon, the so-called GAFAs, and Alibaba. They're doing so many things. They're selling music and hardware, and they're buying Nest and content, and they're in banking and in selling insurance products, everything. So it's a whole universe verticalizing down every single day. More and more and more services within this universe. So if you are a company, and this is interesting, I will show another slide in a second. So if you look at this digital first companies, very often if you look at the org chart, you already see how they set up. For them, what was the primary value added chain before, things like procurement, purchasing, logistics, production, right? They have moved down, right? So you have a CTO, you have the chief marketing officer, chief product officer. These guys are the rock stars. They build the asset. And then these guys buy some products. It might be this today and other products the day after. They are not that important anymore. These guys are the rock stars. So you might ask yourself, so we have built these 150 plus businesses who trust us today. So just a couple of examples, of course, and I think the logos might be a little bit small. I showed some of them. For example, Zero is a very good marketplace in Switzerland. It's a joint venture of Swisscom, which is one of the largest telcos that we have in Europe, and Coop, one of the largest food retailers that we have. And they have founded a joint venture, and this is actually a Amazon-like marketplace, but for Switzerland. Interesting enough, Amazon is not active in Switzerland yet, so they want to attack this market. We have Rose, this is the premium bike shop that I just mentioned. ATU is the second largest car service retail chain in Europe, so they have a couple of thousand car service retail stations all across Europe, and have some very interesting projects. Yair and myself, we are talking about Contorion today. It's a B2B marketplace for tools. Lumas is, I think they are even the largest online photo gallery in the world. So they have offline galleries all across the world, and they're moving online and try to sell these kind of photography and art online. And of course, Westwing already showed you with the furniture and some fashion businesses as well. Also, there is no clear vertical that. So people ask me, okay, so what is it? Is there a certain industry, or do you have a certain vertical that you're interested in? And we say, basically the demand is coming from everywhere, so we don't see any kind of industry which is special. So we are talking and working with furniture companies. These are the ones that I cannot name yet, because they're either not live or we have strong NDAs, but just to give you an impression, we are talking with tool manufacturers, the second largest in the world, with drugstore companies, fashion brands, an airline, insurances, banks, sports association, do-it-yourself marketplace. So it's all across the globe. So all the customer that would be, so the fashion ones would be typical Demandware customers. There are some like typical Magento customers or some Hybris customers which are more coming from the SAP direction. So there is strong interest, and I think the main criteria is really, have you understood the parameters that I have just shown? Do you have the right ambition level? Is technology important for you? Do you want to move fast? Doesn't matter if you're selling tools or drugs or insurance products. Sometimes people also ask, okay, but it's very interesting, but what is the criteria and when can I say that Spryker cannot help me? And Spryker cannot help you when you are slow, right? So when you are really, really slow, if you don't move, you don't want to move fast. Spryker cannot help you when you still think that you can innovate based on the standard software stack. So you maybe seen the slogan that we are using, there is no innovation by configuration. So you cannot just take standard software and just configure it somehow that a very innovative product comes out of it, because it was not designed to do this, right? Every day people, bloggers, etc., call us and ask, why is Spryker better than Hybris or Magento or Demandware? And we always give the same answer, and it's not a PR answer, it's something we really believe in. We always say, it's not better, it's solving another problem. Okay, because every product is built in a certain time and solves the problem of this time, right? So a product like, for example, Hybris, which was built in 1999, was never designed to solve a problem of hyper agility and 50 deployments a day, right? It was designed to stay as close as possible to the ERP, which is by the way is a product like Magento was not designed to solve this kind of problem. It was designed to be a very feature-rich platform in a shop-centric time, and it still serves this market very well, right? So this is the feature-richest platform on earth. So it's pretty much about what kind of problem do you have. If you think that the more features you have, the more you put in your RFP, the more differentiation you will generate for your business model, and most probably Spryker is not for you. If you still think that you should save money on developers, and that developers are cost center, then maybe not for you. And also, if you still believe in that the innovation is something like putting up a responsive website, maybe you should have done it like 10 years ago, but it's not today anymore. I'll skip this slide. Isabel is looking at me already. So, and just to show the other example of the org chart, right? So very often when you come to an organization and you see the board structured more or less like this, someone responsible for purchasing and production and VP or C level for operations, and then you have this secondary elements of the value-added chain like HR and finance and IT, all these nasty things, very often combined on one board member. So there's one guy who's responsible for HR, finance, and IT. Right? So it's very often a good indication that they're not taking this tech stuff very seriously, that they have a little bit different thinking. And it's not impossible. You still can work with these guys, and you still can. I think it's very important to explain what the consequence is. And people who believe that trial and error, very often when I say trial and error, I say yes, this is the best practice. We need to try things out very quickly, a lot of them. And then you say, but you understand that when you do 10 things, 8 of them will fail. What? Fail? Why fail? And you say, yeah, because trial and error, right? So there's also failure in this world. And this is something that, especially in not startup environments, people do not want to hear, because there is no reward for taking risk or failing. Or I have failed, but I've learned a lot. So very reasonable for me in Berlin, right? But very unreasonable for if you would say it in front of a board in a corporate environment. So hopefully you got an impression of what kind of problem we are solving, and asking yourself, what is it? What is the magic about Spryker? And basically, starting with what is Spryker? So it's a commerce technology. It's not a shop system. It's not a pure kind of development framework. It's a commerce technology. It's something in between, which is designed to solve exactly these kind of problems. So for customers who are data-driven, who think about the customer first, and who have very significant performance, so front-end performance and growth ambitions. And to take this one as well, so Spryker is the first commerce technology ever to be featured by Gartner without paying money. Very important to learn. Very important. So the ones of you who have worked with Gartner, you know what I mean. And even Gartner thinks it is something interesting and magical. That's why it's called Magic Quadrant. So about Spryker. So about the product, I don't want to dive too deep into tech. I don't know how much of you from tech audience, please ask me any question that you have afterwards. So basically what we do is we provide you, within this commerce technology, we provide you not one monolithic kind of application. We give you 2 applications, one which is very lean, which is called Eve. It's the front-end application, and there is one called Z. You can run these applications independently, you can deploy them independently, you can split your teams. There is no business logic within Eve, as you might know from other platforms. There is no PHP code, it's not talking to your database, there is no security problem. So just pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, more or less. So you can assign your junior front-end team, because when we say that you can do 50 deployments a day, of course no one's deploying 50 new features a day, so there's a lot of A/B testing and design and other things. So you can separate your teams. You can make sure that the front-end guys are very fast, and that they do not have to wait for 2 or 3 weeks until some back-end developer has built some features. There is an intelligence component. We call it Spryker Intelligence. The idea is basically very simple. It's a called data lake. So it's designed to collect data from everywhere. So it collects all the data that we have in the system. It collects all the data from Google Analytics, from other third-party tracking systems, from POS, from ERP, and we want to create a kind of 360 view on the customer that we are serving. We are not using caching technology, so the ones of you who might have worked with other products, legacy products, might know that there is a certain pain with using caching, and the more business rules you have, the more you have to cache. You want the site to be fast, but you also want personalization. So you start to bring all these business rules, and the more you do it, the more complex it becomes. And you build a feature in a day, but it takes you 3 to 4 days to roll it out. So all these things we don't have. We are using key value storage, so basically storing data in the RAM, which enables us to be very, very fast, so close to 40 milliseconds in the front end with full personalization in B2B or B2C scenarios. We are using Elasticsearch as a technology for search, for filters, for categorizations, so for many things, not just search, because it's much, much faster. We can get the data out in hundreds of milliseconds instead of asking the database, asking the application, which asks the database and then returns it back. And we're using a queue for everything you would like to queue, import data, or, for example, spread data across multiple warehouses, etc., etc. There are two important things for us. So they want to understand that high quality software is important. So Spryker has an open code license, so you are free to go on GitHub and check it out. The repositories are open. You can download it. You can check it out. You can run it through tools like Scrutinizer or others who will indicate you the quality of the software, which is important because these tools measure things like complexity of algorithms, probability of bugs, learning curve for new developers, maintainability, etc. And compared with other legacy systems. It's very hard if I cannot really name this system. You'll see that the rank is like very high. It's 9.6 compared to 5 to 6 of other systems, and the 34 milliseconds front-end performance I already mentioned. But the most important thing, and the reason why we do it, is the point number 2. If there would be like an empiric way to measure IT productivity, which is the main pitch that we have, it would be perfect. There would be no other reason buying any other software. Unfortunately, there is no such KPI. So what we did is we surveyed more than 200 developers using a consulting agency from Munich. They did it with customers and with agencies, and they asked many questions, and one of the important questions was the range of productivity gain and increase they got in comparison to whatever they used before. I don't know why, but the range is like quite big. So I know who said 20 times more productive. I know what this guy used. But anyway, even if it's just 2 or 3, so basically the team says that I can produce 3 times the output with the same team at the same time, right? And if you think back about being customer-centric, being agile, trial and error, you can only do all this if you have this kind of productivity, because if you have more, if you go to the e-commerce manager, he always wants more output in the same amount of time, then he can try out more things. I know I'm doing it fast, like this one, this guy. So this is Spryker actually. Okay, so just 2 or 3 more slides. So what is also important is I said there is no Spryker as a whole. There are 2 applications, Eve and Z. Basically, this is not true. So Spryker is divided in 100 so-called bundles, which are decoupled. And if you look at GitHub, you will see this repositories. Each bundle has X amount of features in it, and you can use the bundles independently, right? So you can create a business model with maybe just 3 or 4 bundles, but you can also use all 100. You can start your MVP or POC for a certain tiny part of the business with 10 bundles, and when it's successful, you can grow up and use more and more things. Or the other way around, you could start with 100, and over the years, you would maybe evolve. You would create some microservices, some Scala technology for this, and some Ruby on Rails for that, right? And stop using certain bundles for the cases where other technologies make more sense. So using Spryker and introducing Spryker is not a binary decision as it is with other platforms. It's much, much more fluent, so you can start little and grow or do it the other way around. And the cool thing is that we are also managing the releases the same way. So since we don't have a monolithic application, we have no need to release it as a whole. There is no 1.0, 1.1, 1.2 release of Spryker. Every bundle has its own version and release cycle. You can see it in the repositories. So we release all the bundles all the time. right? So there is no like release day once a year. So this means that every innovation, bug fixes, innovation, new features that we are producing, we are contributing them back right into the bundle right away. And we show you in the number of the bundle, we indicate you if it's causing a so-called backwards compatibility break or not. So basically, does it break something that you have built on top of it or not? The majority of the case it doesn't. And in the cases where we add some certain important features, we say, look, the version number most probably now you will have a PC break, and this means for you that you can decide if you're updating or not. So it's very important. So you don't have these 2 to 6 weeks of upgrade cycles that you are used to with other legacy platforms, where you have to update everything, right? Even if you're just using 20% of the feature list. You could use the product bundle 1.0 and never touch it again, because you're absolutely fine with what it does for you. But you would take every release of the discount bundle, for example, because you need all these innovations. It's a very important thing. Do you want to hear about why is it different?
I think we got a message here.
Okay, it's a good one. Isabel, I'm sorry. The audience wants me to. Okay, I'm doing it quickly. So we learned some things working with these competitors, and I think that you can relate to many of these messages. So very often you have these platforms, and the time to market is very long. You have 9 months, 6 months, 12 months plus, which is what always was kind of counterintuitive for me, because if the pitch is, I have the feature richest platform on earth, then why the hell does it take like a year to launch a very basic site? This I could not really understand when I was working with Hybris, I have to say. And why all these projects still consume like a massive amount of days, right? Where you do much more configuration and customization, right? So you configure a lot. Sometimes it takes you longer to configure an existing feature than you would have spent to build exactly the discount that you really need, not the 1 billion discount options that you could have in the standard system. And over time, obviously, the productivity, things like upgrade, support, performance, they go down, and you don't use too much, and it leads to this kind of curve. So you're using less and less and less of the platform, but the complexity, interesting enough, rises, and at some point your TCO kind of explodes, and it's the situation that basically Fabian had when he developed the first version of Spryker back in the Zalando days. And we try to compare it like this. So maybe the most prominent examples like Magento and Hybris, and of course you can compare it from different angles. And if you would look, for example, on the feature side, then definitely Spryker would have less features, because we're never pitching we're not building Magento 3 here. Okay, so it's not about the longest feature list. We don't believe in incrementally added features and business value. But on the ownership side, for example, you would have a much better situation for Spryker, because it's a ecommerce technology, it's a framework, so you build much more things, you own them, also from a P&L and asset perspective, so the things belong to you, you're not licensing them. The productivity is important. The vendor lock-in, we do not have this binary kind of purchasing decision. You're not buying Hybris and you stick with it for the next 12 months. So you can use just one bundle or two bundles, so your vendor lock-in is like very little. You can start your MVP or POC projects very simply. Skip this one. So these are like the 3 main points that are important for us. So IT productivity, performance of the website, and flexibility for the developers. And of course, some of you might ask, how much does it cost? So it's very interesting to us. We wanted to bring some innovation into the licensing game as well. We did not like this kind of 5-dimensional, 70 pages price metrics games that other vendors have, where only the sales rep can really see the price that the customer will pay, because it's so complex, combination of SLA and web servers and CPU and threads and module this and country that. So very complex. So our license model is exactly this here. There's nothing else, no options, nothing hidden. And we wanted to license alongside of the key promise of the product, which is IT productivity. So what we said is we don't want any business vector, we don't want to touch any business vector, because we want to be incentivized in the right way. If I charge you for revenue, we will have a discussion about who invests in online marketing. If I charge you for web servers or threads or CPUs, then basically I'm incentivized as a vendor to build a slow software, right? So that you need much more hardware, much more licenses. So this is nothing we wanted to do. So we charge based on what is called developer seats, which is basically the more developers use the software, the more you pay. The less you use the software, the less you pay. And as you can see, there is a quite a flexibility here. So the payment term that you can choose from is the cancellation term. So you don't have a vendor lock-in on the contractual side as well. You don't have a 4 years or 3 years contract. You can pay us on a monthly basis. You can cancel on a monthly basis, or you can do the same on an annual basis. And you can scale up and down. You can mix. You can buy 5 developers, your basic team on an annual basis, and then for projects and peaks, order some additional licenses. And of course, all the upgrades are included. We don't believe in charging for upgrades. Kind of feels like in the 90s. So it's even Windows is giving the upgrades away for free already. So we really wanted to be like this. There is just one option which was added because some corporates wanted it and some purchasing departments demanded to have an official SLA. They could not buy the software when there was no official SLA. So it's flat, not depending on the developer seats. And this is it. So to sum it up, hopefully what you will take away from today is that Spryker is changing quite a few things that you might have learned over the years. So not only on the pricing and the contractual side, but also on time to market and TCO. Time to market, we always say that we really want you to enable you to launch something very quickly in less than 100 days. The meaning and the difference between pitching features versus IT productivity, the way how you can release software, not in a monolithic kind of way, but in a fluent way, and architecture and performance. And with that, thank you very much. I'm sorry, Isabel, for taking a little bit more time.